Okay, week 31, ELA W, and we are now on Wednesday's lesson, which begins with a grammar do now that asks us to use despite and alongside with prepositional phrases into sentences. So we go through the do now, and now that we've finished the do now class, let's all be on page 2 and have someone read today's aim. Go ahead, Jello. We will be able to identify the 5 aspects of plot in a short narrative. Now, we spoke of these aspects last week when we talked about, we applied them to Cinderella, and you've seen me diagram on the board a few times that a story always starts with exposition. Remember, the exposition takes the reader to that world, just like we learned of Cinderella by putting her in the context of evil stepsisters and a stepmother that does not love her. So too, you need to create a picture in your narrative of where are we? When is this happening? Who's around? What's going on? So that the reader feels immersed completely in your world, because that's going to really give stakes to your characters. If you don't do a good job of explaining the beginning of your story, nobody's really going to care about the characters that get bullied. So make sure that you do that. We then have rising action that begins with some inciting incident, some conflict occurs that's going to make the action rise. We eventually have a climax, and then after the climax, action rescinds. We have falling action to an eventual resolution. Now, we're going to read The Black Kippa, which is a crazy story that I didn't know about. It's about World War II, and it's very short. It's about a page long. We're going to read this together, and then we're going to run it back, and you're going to read on your own, trying to identify which parts of the story are exposition, which parts of the story are rising action, which parts of the story is the climax, then the falling action, and then the resolution. Every part of this story should match into one of those 5 categories, and it's going to go in that order. No story starts with the climax. That's ridiculous. That's bad storytelling. This goes in order. Expo, rising action, climax, falling action, and then resolution. Let's do this as a class with your hands. Let's try that. Okay? Exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. All right. So every story should do that. All right. Yeah, all right. Now, I imagine we're going to now have people doing this with their hands, and okay, it's what I've asked for. So, The Black Kippa will be ready to be called on. We read and we read and we read. Fast forward. Now, let's look at the directions that come at the end of this reading. Go back to The Black Kippa and use brackets and margin notes to indicate where each part of the plot begins and ends. Label the exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. We're going to let's give 6 minutes. We'll put that on the clock and we'll put that on the board so that you have a sense of how much time you have left. And make sure that you're reading. This needs to be read again. It requires 2 readings to get this done. But you'll see, if you're like, wait, what am I missing? You'll notice at the bottom of the page that we've just read, the diagram gives you an idea of where everything should fall. Exposition, initial conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Remember, every paragraph is something. The way that you're going to do it is through brackets. So you take this paragraph and you write what it is. Okay, let's do that now. And we fast forward 6 minutes later. Okay, so let's look at this one last time. First paragraph, Japan had surrendered. The war was over. That is, we knew it was over, but there were hundreds, maybe thousands of Japanese soldiers hidden in the wilderness in the Philippine Islands who did not know, and possibly some that do not know to this day. I believe this was written a long time ago. Now, what part of the story is this? We see hands go up, and go ahead, Uriel. This is exposition. Good. It tells the reader where this is taking place. Look. Japan had surrendered. That tells me that this is right after World War II. It says that many maybe thousands of Japanese soldiers were hidden in the wilderness of the Philippine Islands who did not know. So now I know that we're in the Philippine Islands. This is taking me into that world. Second paragraph. I was one of the first lieutenants in charge of infantry companies, composed of 200. So we're learning about the main character. What part of the story is this? Raise your hand. It too is exposition. So your exposition, notice, it might be the longest part of your story because it's so vital that the reader feels like they're in the world. Now I know that there's a character. He's in the Philippines. It's after World War II, and I can feel myself being transported. That's what your story should do as well.